Time is 3 o'clock. I'm calling to order the Board of Equalization. Please silence all cell phones and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A copy of Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the boardroom. At this time, I'd like to open up for any public comment before the meeting agenda begins. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak to the board this afternoon? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to roll call. We've got Kelly Burmeister, Warren, Mixon, and Klug are present. We also have Bonnie Moore, our administrator, and Kendra Kaler from the clerk's office, as well as Jeff Mikesell, our treasurer, Dan Pittman, assessor, and Denny Wilson, our county engineer. Public comments, we covered that. Consent and equalization agenda. We have a motion.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion by Warren, second by Kelly. Any comments? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
Moving on to agenda item 6.1, tax correction 17536, Dan Pittman, County Assessor.
Good afternoon. We just have one today. Do you have any questions on that one?
Any questions for Dan?
I was going to try to beat you having to get up here. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Warren, second by Burmeister. Any further comments or questions? Please vote. Thanks, Dan.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
Up next, there's no need for an executive session in Board of Equalization, so all agenda items having been addressed as published, the Board of Equalization is adjourned. It is now 3:02, calling to order the Board of Commissioners. Once again, we have Commissioners Kelly, Burmeister, Warren, Mixon, and Klug, along with Bonnie Moore, our administrator, Kendra Kaler from the clerk's office, Jeff Mikesell, our treasurer, Dan Pittman, and Denny Wilson, our county engineer. Once again, we'll open up to any public comments from anybody in the room. Seeing none, we'll move on to commissioners' comments. Commissioner Kelly?
Hot off the presses. NERMA's monthly magazine with a nice article by our own county administrator, Bonnie Moore. Recommended reading for all Sarpy County employees.
If you want a signed copy afterwards, Don, let me know.
Autographs after the meeting.
Nothing, thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I was going to make a comment last week, but Bonnie had mentioned that OPPD was going to craft a response to our some of the questions that were asked 2 weeks ago. So I waited for those to come, and we did get crafted, and I use that term carefully, crafted responses to the questions. It was really no more than a PR event that OPPD put on here before us. We had asked that they bring elected officials. Elected officials did show up from the OPPD board, but they introduced themselves and promptly sat down. They never did intend to answer questions. I asked several very simple, straightforward questions. Simple questions like, how much power do the data centers consume? Do they pay the same rate as customers that we pay as rate as customers? And so it's a very straightforward thing. The simple question is, can OPPD guarantee us that they'll provide the energy we need as Sarpy County grows? I got no responses for those, but they did promise they would send responses. They sent crafted responses that in response to one of the things, they told that we're supposed to look on Meta's annual report and glean the answers ourselves. I think it was totally unsuitable for what they did, and as I said earlier, was no more than a public relations event for them here. I think elected officials should be here and be the ones answering the questions that I get asked all the time from people in Sarpy County about OPPD and the power consumption in our county. It's obvious that they don't want to answer those questions, and I'm back to the same place I've been with OPPD before. Don't listen to what they say, but watch what they do. And I've asked, I don't know why OPPD even comes and gives a presentation to our board. We don't have MUD, we don't have any other energy providers or anybody else, utility companies come before us. And I've requested, and I don't think I'm going to win that battle. But I just want to say it's a public relations event on their part, and I don't think this is the place for it. Thank you.
No comment.
Just a quick follow-up on Jim's comments about OPPD. I appreciate them being here. To Jim's point, we don't have any other power producers in the county, and their relationship is incredibly pivotal with the growth that we're going through right now. Sounds like there's an opportunity for us to build a better relationship with them, and worst case scenario, let's look at it as that and see if we can reach out directly to their elected officials.
In the past, historically, and Don was a part of this, when they came in and bought up ground, unbeknownst to us, along Platteview Road to put in solar farms, they communicated to the public, oh, we communicate regularly with the Sarpy County Board. I would just as soon not have a public presentation. If you want to meet with them weekly, you can do that.
That was a different leadership at the time.
Same thing happened. I've asked questions, and they responded with vague responses. They aren't here to establish relationship. They're here as a public relations event for them, my opinion.
You're certainly entitled to your opinion. I think there's an opportunity to build the relationship stronger, and probably the best path to go.
I just wanted to say that I was one of the ones that thought it was a good idea for them to be here when Don Kelly and I were at a meeting with them, with Bonnie. We've been asked questions, by constituents, and so for that reason, I thought it was helpful that they come and present. I understand your frustration, Jim, with getting some specific questions answered. I kind of like them to come just so that we can ask them those questions here in an easy format, and it can be on the record.
Then I also request MUD, who is a big utility vendor in Sarpy County. Why don't they come as well?
I don't have a problem with that. I just I think it's helpful to have some information on the record that our taxpayers can see, but we all have different opinions. I get it.
Bonnie?
No comments, thank you.
Thank you. Up next, agenda item 5, presentations. Legislative update from Tim Gay from Catalyst Public Affairs. Hey, Tim.
Thank you. Is it on here? Nope.
That's not the question.
Summary. No?
Strike
But
two.
it looks better, Bonnie.
Monday, maybe.
Tim knows how to do that stuff too, though.
There we go.
All right.
Oh, that's wrong too.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Bonnie. But anyway, Tim Gay with Catalyst Public Affairs. I'll just give you a quick update. Some of this I think we covered a little bit before, but what we're dealing with, the whole new legislature, new senators, new committees, and all that. We discussed that before. That's been very interesting. Change from last year, I tell you what. So we're still making introductions to some of these people, and they're kind of getting used to what they're doing. They haven't had one break yet, so they're working hard. I'll give them credit. But we've been dealing with our senators. As you can see, they've risen to chairman, speaker. We got 2 chairs, Senator Sanders, Senator Holcroft, and then Senator Anderson has been really great to work with, and Senator Roundtree as well. So we've got a really good delegation to work with this year, and kind of excited about that. They've helped us draft some bills, and I'll get into that in 1 minute. Right here's the calendar. We'll be done in June. So today is day 26, I think. So we're kind of zipping through fairly quickly. I like that. Long session, when it began, where we're at, full floor debate is going to be the end of March. That's been very good because we've had, in a chaotic mess that it always is, it's been kind of slowed down, and that's been very good that we can hopefully see these the bills coming, the hearings coming, participate in those, and have a great time doing that. So March 14th, there's going to be bill priorities done. That's super helpful. We're going to get, as far as we'll know what's going on. I think there were 800 or 715 bills, as you can see, introduced. So narrowing that down will be very helpful. What we talked about last time too was the budget. So correct on the budget is $432 million in the hole this year. So I just heard today twice, we can't pass anything with any fiscal note on it. So that'll limit 350 bills probably, I suppose. But that's kind of an odd thing considering how much money we had just a year ago. So, and then going forward in the next biennium, it's $1.4 billion shortfall. So something will have to happen this year. Speaker Arch brought up many times his most important thing, which it is every other year in a long session, is get a budget passed. So with all these things going on, that's the most important thing we're going to be dealing with. What's in the budget, what's cut from the budget. They're going to kick out a preliminary budget probably tomorrow or the next day, I'm guessing, and then we'll see what the Appropriations Committee cut and didn't cut. There's rumors out, on public health, they've cut some money and all sorts of different things. So we'll see. That'll be quite a shock, I think, when they come out with that, and we'll decide what to do. Some of those constitutional amendments are some of the same things we've seen, extension of legislative terms to 3 terms, pay increases for the legislature. It's also the get rid of the property taxes, with that thing. So a lot of those are just the same old thing that we've seen. We drafted 5 bills, got 4 introduced. These are the bills that we looked at, and they're basically all unfunded mandates. So we've learned a lot on this. Sarah Holcroft, his office helped draft a lot of these things, and you see probation that's coming up in 2 weeks. But Senator Quick introduced, he's from Grand Island, on the Health and Human Services space issue, where you're paying for space that they use everything else. You just have to get stuck with the bill and the space. Senator Anderson, we put that bill in LB 612. It's coming up Thursday. Commissioner Klug's going to testify on it. It was to pay 100%. He asked, with the budget constraints, could we put it at 50%? We're no reason to argue. Sure, Senator, thank you. So we cut it to 50%. Along the way, we've been working on that bill. It's very interesting. Dan has been a huge help on that, Dan Tolkas, and we found out that how these things got drafted just kind of like piecemealed together over the years. So we'll pay for this, you pay for that, we'll pay for this, you pay for that. Oh, I didn't know we're paying for this. So each county is doing it differently, we found out. So it's going to be an interesting hearing, I think, for Commissioner Klug when he brings him up to speed of what we're paying for and what we're not paying for and why and what other people are doing. So I do believe that should be 100%, maybe, and that's, we'll see. So the state should pick that up. And then Sarah Holcroft on the dock stamp tax, he helped draft that one. That one is going to be a little harder to pass to get. There's about 7 documentary stamp tax, who's collecting it, who's getting the benefit of it. But he put in there, the one thing that's a little iffy on that one is it'd be taking away some of the housing funds, and that affordable housing, there's money that goes into there, but we'd be chipping into that fund. So we'll get a little pushback on that one. But that was his choice to do that. Some other bills that we didn't introduce, though, they're super important. Senator Conrad, this is a bill that was last year. It's Political Subdivisions Tort Claims Act, and that you're limited with sovereign immunity on a lot of the things counties and cities do because you don't want to be sued all the time. So there's a cap on that of what we do. She's trying to remove that cap a little bit because there have been some cases with child abuse on schools mainly. The issue with you, so they have another one on the schools that they would be responsible for, so they're fighting that. Yours is, this opens up probably a bigger Pandora's box if this happens. So NERMA and others have been opposed to this, the League of Municipalities. The governor vetoed this bill last session, regular session. So, but it's back, so we'll see how that goes. There's some Republicans signing on to it. It used to be always Democrats, would get on here and then the Republicans would oppose it. Now we're getting both sides kind of looking into it. So we'll see what happens. Maybe they can find a happy medium. Just yesterday on LB 449, Commissioner Kelly came down, testified. That was more of a bill to look at adequate funding and fairness in funding. It would be funded by district instead of just put into a pool. There again, that was towards the end of the hearing. I think Commissioner Kelly and I and everyone was kind of surprised to hear that they haven't really changed the funding method since 1988. The project's in there, so it's the way we heard it. And it's like, there's a few ones, when you get some new developments coming in and all that, but those are usually the cities and the counties building those roads, and you're using your share to do that. But as far as the major expressways and some of those things, they haven't even looked at them. So a lot of their money just goes to maintenance, like yours does too. But so there was talk, though. I don't know if anything will come of this, but maybe another 1/8 of a cent tax to go into roads so you can build some new construction. So I don't know if that will go anywhere, but Senator Brandt brought that up.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Senator.
There was another thing that was very surprising is that the state Department of Transportation doesn't have good data on where gas taxes receipts come from. They just funnel into the state and then they're divvied up and sent back as part of your allocation money, but no one knows where they come from. Nobody tracks it. So obviously, the most population, the most cars is probably the metropolitan area in District 2. So I think we're taking it a little bit in the shorts on that end as well. It was a good meeting, a good hearing, and I think there's a good chance it will get out of committee, but because they can't put a fiscal note on it, and Tim just said that's going to be critical, it probably is a long shot at best. But the other thing I'd point out is that they allocate the highway allocation dollars based on road miles. Is that right, Tim?
Yeah, Port Road.
Well, District 2, District 8, it's the whole system's kind of needs to be revamped because I'm not saying they need good roads in Scottsbluff, don't get me wrong. They need them all over the state. And by and large, we do have pretty good road infrastructure. But there's only two things our constituents demand: public safety and good roads. Well, maybe schools too, but we don't have anything to do with that. But the things that we oversee, those are the two things. And Platteview Road Expressway is never going to see the light of day if we're using 1968 data.
Yep. So that was a good hour and a half discussion, and Senator Frederickson left it as Commissioner Kelly just talked about. Maybe we should have a better interim study, a way to figure this out. So that also brings up motor vehicle sales taxes. A lot of that doesn't go to the roads, obviously. So anyway, but it was kind of enlightening. You learn something new every day. So that was a good one. Senator Clements 468 is again inheritance tax. This time, though, and we were neutral. They had a hearing on this. This doesn't go to the first tier of the inheritance tax. This is tier 2 and 3. So like a second or third generation, not a direct descendant. And he wants to chip away at that and make that, lower that from like 16 and 20 to like 1%. like what you would pass on over $100,000 to your kids or something. So anyway, that was an interesting hearing. A lot of opposition to that, more opposition than for it. He's going to leave it as I don't know where to get the money. There's 5 things in there that he's trying to get money from. Doc Stamp again on that, but at the end of that hearing, to me, it sounded like, oh, I'm not so sure we got a solution here. So he left it as if anybody has a magic bullet, let me know. But so that has 5 tax increases on it to decrease a tax. And Douglas County and Lancaster County were opposed. You're neutral on that, as you always are, as far as we get compensated directly. John Cannon was a big driver in that, and Candace Meredith. So other than that, it's like things are going well. I know Commissioner Klug and Commissioner Burmeister and Bonnie, we have meetings. Scott's on there, Dan's on there. We have meetings. We have 90 bills that we've been following. Like I say, these ours are coming up. I know Thursday you're going to be testifying, but so we have like 5 or 6 more things probably we'll be testifying on. I'm guessing Judiciary Committee just came out. They scheduled all their hearings, so we'll take a look at those tomorrow. But what we're doing right now, we have some new software, so they get a look at the software, and then what we do it by hearing dates, what's coming up, what we're following, what we're supporting, what we're not, and kind of leaving it at that. So it's kind of a new method. I know Commissioner Burmeister being on the NACO, Commissioner Mixon was on there for a few years too. So she gets a lot of that, going to meetings, seeing what NACO is supporting or not. Of course, a lot of times NACO is supporting something that you may not be, or other things that come up that the big 3 counties is like, well, that doesn't relate to us, or we have a problem and then they don't. So it's kind of an odd situation, but in general, NACO's been helpful as well. So with that, we've got those meetings every Wednesday, and then a lot of emails going back and forth. Probably not enough because it changes quickly, but leave it at that. And if you guys have anything to add on the meetings, or
I think one thing that would be helpful, and I know things are changing by the hour, basically, down there, but if you get any indication that our testimony is going to be requested or desired, the sooner we know that, the better we can try to get one of the 5 of us down there. Because I think it's important, especially for the SARPI delegation, when they're sponsoring legislation, that we show up and support them if it meets our objectives. And like I testified at 449 yesterday. I went there and testified as Don Kelly because I didn't have board consensus on, I didn't have a chance to even talk to everybody to see kind of if they were aligned. But I think it's a more powerful message if you go down there and say, I represent the Sarpy County Board rather than I'm Don Kelly, Commissioner. So that would be really helpful. And I know those requests are going to come, and we may not, most of us have day jobs. We're not always going to be able to support it, but when and where we can, we definitely want to.
Yep. We're struggling with that as far as what to do, because sometimes, well, and this could be my fault too, is sometimes on these bills you look at them and it has a $26 million fiscal note.
Yeah.
All right. A little bit of common sense here. That's not going to pass this year. I mean, it sounds good. We would be supportive of something like that, but it's not going to happen. So we don't see those fiscal notes till early. So a lot of times it's a guess between all of us, just a judgment call to do. On all the bills that we introduced, we have somebody come to testify. So, and we drafted those. We draft the statement of intent. We draft all that. So that's good. We're very consistent on the unfunded and underfunded. The military veterans bills, there's a lot of those going on too. We don't testify on every single one of those. There could be a letter of support. And a lot of times it's like, that's okay, but you should come down and testify on it. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, I know you say you got a day job, I agree, but you've been there many times too, where you spend your whole day, you're waiting, and instead of being first in line, you're last. So we're trying to watch what your time is as well and make sure that you get the bang for the buck. But yeah, we've been back and forth, whether it's a resolution or if we get to do 8 bills with a resolution or a bill changes quickly. A bill could be really good at the beginning and stink in the end, or stink in the beginning and get better in the end. So that's a little bit too, watching that. So, and being a little.
There's just some value for all of us to go down there to network. I mean, we were walking the hall yesterday and there's Governor Pillen. We talked to him for a couple minutes. I mean, you don't get those opportunities sitting at your office at home, or at work. So
Yeah.
those are important opportunities.
Well, and I know Commissioner Burmeister, she feels too, we should have a resolution and we'll try to do that when we can. I don't know, you guys got any thoughts on that as far as we're going over that and there's no perfect thing, but,
Well, if you have a weekly meeting,
oh yeah.
we ought to be able to get a consensus out of that at least. And that might be the best we can do is pick up the phone and call somebody and go, you okay with this? And we need an answer now.
Yeah, if we can do that, perfect.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best approach.
And the good thing, like I said, Judiciary just scheduled out their whole schedule. So we're seeing a little bit more of that. Usually you'd look 2 weeks in advance. Now we're getting where we could actually look out quite a bit further. So.
Any other questions for Tim?
Just one comment. Yeah, I just want to publicly thank you. You put a lot of effort into making sure that we get to where we go, say what we need to say, when we need to say it, and I know that that's not easy.
Yeah.
So appreciate all your support down there, and I think it makes a big difference as we try to message the senators on what we think is important. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. And the other thing too, that goes back on you because it's a lot of, you've got to know what you're talking about so you don't look foolish. And some of these are very technical bills, not that you don't know, you know more about government probably than a lot of people, but sometimes, you get those things like, well, like I say, we just finding out about this court cost today or this week, in the last couple of weeks. It's been interesting. So you've got to go down there and so, yeah, well, I appreciate that. Sorry for the long presentation, but it is kind of, things are rolling along. There's going to be, the good thing, there's no lids going on. There's none of this big stuff. What's happening now a little bit is, I call them, I should say, they're more frivolous bills, right? They don't have huge financial implications. They don't have a lot of things like that because they have no money. So what they're doing is say, well, how about if you do this? So that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's not going to kill you, but it's also more of a nuisance for you. So we got to make sure those things don't come either, that you got 28 new things to do in the next 2 years. So
Yeah, this
sorry for
year's
the long presentation. And
Definitely less exciting than last year, and appreciate your guidance through all of it.
That's
So
good so far.
Appreciate it, Tim. Looking forward
Yeah.
to seeing you on Thursday.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item 6, the consent commissioners agenda. Does anybody want to see any items pulled from the consent agenda? If not,
Motion to approve.
Second.
motion to approve by Warren, second by Burmeister. Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
All right, agenda 7 is planning and zoning. These are both public hearings, so we'll have a public hearing for both agenda items 7.1 and 7.2. First one, 7.1, public hearing and resolution 2025-39, rezoning from agricultural farming district to RE2 residential estates 2 district for the subdivision to be known as 230th and Harrison Street Estates, lots 1 through 75 and outlots A through I, generally located southwest of 225th Street and Harrison Streets. Applicant Jasper Stone Partners, Kelly Jeck, which is not Kelly Jeck, we'll get to that in a second. 7.2, public hearing and resolution of 2025-38, preliminary plat for a subdivision to be known as 230th and Harrison Street Estates, lots 1 through 75 and outlots A through I, being platting of 2 parcels legally described as the northeast quarter, and tax lots 1 and 5 and tax lot 9, all in the section 15, township 14N, range 10E, of the 6th PM, Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located southwest of 225th and Harrison Streets. Applicant Jasper Stone Partners. Julie Ogden is here representing for the Planning Commission.
Good evening, County Board. My name is Julie Ogden with JEO Consulting Group. I am a consultant for the county planning and public works departments, and I will be reviewing these applications with you. As Chairman Klug said, this is the 230th and Harrison rezoning and platting application. So the applications were to change the zoning from its current AG zoning to a residential estates 2, which is your 2-acre lot size, as well as a preliminary plat, which includes 75 single-family lots and 9 outlots, using a master plan development. And we'll go into what that is here in a second, because I know that's kind of new to everybody. So the site is located here is just to the south of Harrison and west of 225th, and it does, with its various phases, will go all the way over to 240th Streets. The future land use for this area is the residential estates. So a master plan development is outlined in section 30.1 of the zoning regulations. And what that does is it allows a developer to make some adjustments, but they are required to include paved streets, community water and or wastewater systems, and it must be at least a minimum of 160 acres. So as I said, it allows for the flexibility in design, environmental protections and how those are provided, as well as they can provide some community amenities. This site, as it's currently proposed, is they are not proposing to use a sanitary and improvement district, but they will have a homeowners association which will maintain all of the interior improvements. They are proposing a paved road with earth shoulders and ditches. And the environmental protection, so there are a number of, as we'll talk about here in a minute, number of creeks, a lot of beautiful trees, hilly terrain, are being provided with a combination of both outlots and permanent easements. And each lot will have a defined allowed building area on it, and then the exterior and remaining areas are to be native grasses, native plants, and those sorts of things. So the preliminary plat site layout is shown here on the screen. As noted, it's 75 lots, which will be developed in 4 different phases. Being a little bit repetitive here, apologize, but defined buildable area. So outside of that defined buildable area, no buildings can be constructed. So the way the developer explained this to planning staff was, we've got an outline that'll come in with this preliminary plat as well as refined with the final plat, but then as the lots are built upon, it'll be further refined, and so additional areas will also be set aside, and that will be provided with each building permit application to the planning department.
So how's that determination going to be made? Which area is the defined buildable area? Is that done by an engineering firm? Or?
It is, done by the developer's engineering firm. What we're going to look at is try to avoid existing treed areas, look for those flatter spaces, locations where it's easily accessible, and definitely keep it away from the creeks. I've got an exhibit here in a minute.
Well, and that's good, and that's all fine and good, but what happens if I do an engineering analysis and find out the soil where we thought was the best place is not optimal, or it has groundwater, or 100 other things? I would think you would have to have a certified engineering study done on each lot to know where to best site a home. Otherwise, 5-10 years later, you could have settling and lawsuits and all that other stuff.
Well, and there will be geotechnical studies required between now and before the final plat comes in, because they are looking to utilize septic as well, and we want to make sure that the soils are applicable for that.
You said septic?
Correct.
Well, I thought a couple slides ago you said that it was going to be community water and...
Or sewer. That's what's required as part of a master plan development.
So it's all going to be septic.
Correct, and I'll go through that here in a minute, but that's with the terrain, we would do a lot more disturbance to the environmental sensitive areas by trying to force groundwater or sanitary sewer to be pumped and piped through
So
pipes to get there.
Is there going to be water?
They are proposing MUD water.
And what other utilities will there be?
A gas, and then I'm assuming,
MUD's going out there or Black Hills?
I'd have to have the developer answer that. They've been the one that's been
And
discussing it.
electricity, obviously.
And OPPD, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, not a problem. And they do currently have 6 flag lots that are proposed. Those are located here in this southwest corner. There's a large creek that they would have to cross, so there will be a joint driveway for each triplet, I guess would be the easiest way. It's not a pair of lots, but 3 lots will share a singular creek crossing again to help continue to protect the creek crossing there. So this is the example of what the buildable lot areas would look like at the time the platting and with the development agreement. So you can see the area in green is always going to be your protected areas. The yellow would be the preliminarily allowed buildable areas. And right now those are based on terrain and tree cover and also proximity to creeks. That'll be further refined as they continue on with their engineering analysis of the site. And so then outlots have already hit those. So the services and access and services that are being proposed is there will be 2 different connections to Harrison Street when this would be fully built out. The first one is located right here off of Harrison. 225th is right over here. As the county board is likely aware, we're currently partnering with Douglas County to get Harrison paved to 205th. So this development, one of the conditions is that they would be required to pave through their first phase entrance. This is the entrance that would go in first as part of the first phase. There is one connection over here on 240th. And we do have a stub street out that would eventually, when the adjacent property develops, connect to 225th. The final connection would be up here on Harrison Street. That would be the connection made with the 4th phase of the project. They are proposing the dedication for 240th and Harrison out to the 50-foot right-of-way as required by Public Works Department. They're proposing gated and private streets. They would have asphalt surfacing and would be required to meet the Nebraska minimum design standards, which will allow a little more flexibility than what is currently in the county's design standard book, and we'll go over that here in a minute. As discussed previously, they're proposing to extend MUD services to the site, and we're currently in the process of reviewing with the geotechnical if individual septics for each of the lots could be used or not. So the environmentally protected areas or sensitive areas on the site include the creeks. And so you've got an outlot that this is the main drainage creek. If you look at the aerial, you can clearly see it, and it goes up to the north towards Harrison, and then there's a couple draws over, and then there's a couple drainage ways that head up north in both of those. Those are being protected by combinations of an outlot, or where you see the shading, those would be permanent easements that would meet the 3:1 plus 50 designation. We are currently coordinating with the NRD to make sure we're providing the appropriate widths to protect all of those as well, as per the Southern Sarpy Watershed Partnership. That's a new one for me. I always have to read it to make sure I say it right. There are also a couple existing ponds on the property that we're going to work with the developer to, some of them, you don't see water today, so they either have silted in or dried up, but we would like to keep those because they do provide erosion attenuation, as well as the old rail bed, which follows along this property line and then continues up. The structures under that also provide erosion attenuation, so we want to make sure those are maintained. They are limiting the tree removal to just those areas needed for the grading, and you can see these darker areas that follow the road paths. Those are the limits of the grading and areas that trees would need to be removed to construct that at the different phases. Trees, is my understanding, some trees would be replanted to replace those removed. And then all of the lots would have native grasses, as well as the right-of-ways and the ditches would also have native grasses.
Is the creek all one outlot?
No, there are a variety of outlots because it's broken up by the different, the roadway is in an outlot, and then the creek outlots are broken up by different, where they cross the road outlot.
Okay, so there's several pieces there.
Yes.
I just know
Yep.
from experience that having it be one can be problematic if it moves or changes or.
Yeah, so they are different. And, and that's where we're looking at trying to make sure we have the width in that outlot. But there are a few locations where it is, the bank, we have a little bit of the bank in a permanent easement that's adjacent to a lot as well. And so we're working through how those protections and maintenance of that bank would be done as a group. So below is the typical section that the developer provided for the main channel that runs east-west, as well as a couple pictures along that channel for your review. With the application, the developer requested 2 main waivers. The roadway design waiver had 3 different parts. The maximum roadway grade that's allowed by the county standards is 10%. By Nebraska minimum design standards, I believe it can go up to 11, and the developer requested a 15. That was requested to limit the grading and environmental impacts. However, the concern, and Public Works is recommending to not allow the roadway slope, and Planning Commission concurred with that, just because a 15% roadway slope ditch is going to be very hard to maintain and highly erodible. So they would like to keep that to the 10% maximum within subdivision regulations, to allow the elimination of curb and gutter, which with the roadway paving, the earth shoulders and the ditches makes sense. We don't need curb and gutter because that will just make all the rainwater want to leave in a single spot, whereas now it just kind of slows down and goes into the ditch, and so it's less concentrated. That's what I was trying to think of. And then pavement width. County standards require 2 12-foot lanes. When curb and gutter is not used, they would like to use 2 11-foot lanes. That does meet minimum design standards for the state of Nebraska. So the curb and gutter and the pavement width were supported by Public Works. The last request is a cul-de-sac length request for this cul-de-sac in the southeast corner. The measurement from the future extension to 225th down to the end of the cul-de-sac is over 600, which is the maximum. It's right about 800, I believe, when I measured it. This future connection time is undetermined, and so the county engineer, Public Works Department has concerns with this waiver request, but we will continue to work with the developer between now and final plat to see if we can find some other resolutions as well to that. But at this time, Public Works does not recommend the cul-de-sac waiver. Down here is a typical section where you can see the 2-lane roads, the earth shoulder, and then the ditch that is being proposed. So additional staff comments from Planning Department include, we need to continue to work on coordination for the best way to ensure maintenance of this overall development. This is a larger development. Usually developments of this size, in the past we have seen a sanitary improvement district created, which obviously is a governmental entity of sorts of its own, allows for maintenance and cost to provide that maintenance. They are proposing to do an HOA, so we're going to continue to work with them and county attorney's office on how that can be crafted. They are going to cost share on the Harrison Street paving improvements. They have already noted that. Are open to having in the agreement a cost share for future improvements to 240th Street. Working with Public Works in a study recently done, they're looking at alternatives to just putting concrete down over there. Maybe there's something else that will still work. And I do know, and you'll likely hear from, it came up with some of the public comments, concerns with the bridge width on 240th as well. That isn't something we're looking at including in the agreement, but may need to be addressed. They would like the interior roads to be private, and especially if gated, then they would be private, and we are going to say a community water system is required even if they cannot come to terms with MUD. So that we're getting to my last slide. Recommendations, both Planning Commission and planning staff did recommend approval of the zoning request from agricultural to residential estates 2, as it does meet the future land use maps in the comprehensive plan, as well as approval of the preliminary plat subject to all of the conditions in the staff report, which you have in front of you. That is what I have for you right now. What questions do you have?
Was there any opposition on the planning commission?
We had 3 property owners that testified. There were concerns raised. Nobody said, I oppose this, but there are a number of concerns. I believe, I know at least one of the family members of one of the property owners that testified is here today, and you will likely hear from him. And there were also comments provided within your packets that the county planning office received, mirrored a lot of those same comments. It was access, Harrison Street's condition, dusty, obviously with the paving of that in the joint project with Douglas County, that will largely be taken care of. And then the requirement for the developer to pave it through their entrance would also help with that. Erosion concerns from the site onto adjacent properties, and then the 240th, which we talked about. Questions on time frame as far as how long it would take for the development once it starts to be fully developed, or the different phasing and how that was planned was a question. And then, just maintenance, further maintenance of everything inside.
With the erosion concerns, I know there was a couple subdivisions out in Gretna several years ago that were having some erosion issues to where the water would come through. One, and the developer ended up declaring bankruptcy, but then it went down to another development and was basically flooding people's homes. Is that same concern here, or is this something where we don't think it will have that big of a negative impact on future development?
This site is not too far. Here, let me see if I can grab the vicinity map. The Elkhorn River is just off the picture over here. So this all drains down, goes underneath, and then there aren't too many residences between the end of this and the Elkhorn River, so there's less likelihood. I'm not going to ever promise, but that is something we would be looking at and making sure the overall stormwater detention, no more runoff leaves the site than it does today.
Okay.
Also would help with the flooding there. And they will have a plan for temporary silt basins and those sorts of things, looking at maybe some permanent features within the ditches to help attenuate erosion and try to catch it a little bit sooner should it occur, especially during the establishment period.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You mentioned that the standard for road construction was 12 feet, right? Or 11 feet?
In the county subdivision regulations, I think when you subtract off the curb and gutter section, it becomes 12 feet per lane.
But we're going to approve 11 feet out here?
We are open, because that would meet, when you look at the Nebraska minimum design standards with a private roadway system, that would meet those standards for the amount of traffic we're
So
anticipating.
how far is the entrance to this development going to be from the closest fire station?
I do not know the answer to that, Mr. Kelly.
I'll bet it's a long ways.
Potentially. I know the Gretna Fire Chief did provide comments that were in your packet as
Will
well.
there be hydrants out there?
Yes.
Okay. That's good. And then how does emergency vehicles get access with in a gated community?
I would have to have the developer answer that. I would assume there'd be either some sort of code that they would be provided, just because I'm assuming it's a coded system versus like a garage door opener type. But
So-
if it's that, they would have
I got a couple major concerns here. Number one is it's going to be a long time before we get utilities out there, I think. Having worked with OPPD and MUD, it could be a long time. So approving something that has no start date possible is not optimal.
Well, MUD will be out to 216th. There's a new development on the Douglas County side, so they would just need to extend from 216th out to here.
And the other thing I don't like, I'm concerned about, is that Harrison Street borders it to the north, and we don't control what happens north of Harrison Street.
Correct.
So getting people to help fund this road that would be paved is probably not going to happen. Just saying. And then as far as the road, I don't know of anything in our 1 and 6 or even 1 and 26 that paves Harrison Street that far out west.
I think that's in our 1 and 6.
The 1 and 6 will get you to 225th, I'm assuming. Denny can probably correct me if I am speaking out of turn.
So where's 225th on the map?
It is, here, let me go back to the vicinity map. So this is 225th right here.
Yeah.
So then their entrance is right here.
So you're going to have, there's going to be a section there that's going to have to be paved,
Correct.
right?
And so we'd partner with Douglas County as well as Sarpy County and the developer
Well,
to figure out the cost.
I
share.
understand that, but I'm just telling you, those are acreages north of Harrison, and you're not going to get any help from Douglas County on that. And it's going to be a hard sell for Sarpy County to get behind paving something for a subdivision that's exclusive and gated, made up of millionaire houses. Because we've got 1,000 miles of roads that aren't paved in the county already, and the priorities, I think, would, when you rack and stack them, is going to make this one a tough sell. I'm just being
Yep.
honest.
No, that's what you're here for, Chairman, or Vice Chairman, excuse me.
Yeah, quick question with, so I've never been on proposed to approve one of these before that had so many fit inside Nebraska, but not Sarpy. We're voting on the preliminary plat today. There are opportunities between that and final plat. Are there some of the concerns that exist right now, opportunity to correct those? I know that you were saying the 10 and 11% grade as opposed to 15%. When they come back for final plat, is that something to where these things should be?
They would have to all be worked out prior to
Okay.
presenting final plat, not only to the Planning Commission, but obviously to yourselves as well.
Thank you.
Including a development agreement. Yeah, this is a preliminary plat. So the goal of a preliminary plat is to review the concept of what they're proposing and how that fits in with your comprehensive plan and development plans for the area.
So I mean, I appreciate economic development. It'll broaden the tax base. These are going to be nice homes. They're going to pay a lot of property tax. It's all good there. My only concern is that, so I'll approve the preliminary plat and the change of zone today. I don't have a problem with it, but I'm going to be very reluctant to approve a final plat unless we have some more firm details on what this is going to look like.
Oh, absolutely.
Any
Right.
further questions for Julie?
All right. Thank you. I will be here if you have any further questions that come up after the developer, the public comment.
Thank you. And to your point, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak to items 7.1 or 7.2? And for the record, please state your name and address. Thank you.
My name is DJ Hinman. I'm a part of the development team for this project. Appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to listen to this, and just also super thankful for Sarpy County, your guys' leadership, and it's been a breath of fresh air working with Sarpy County. The planning staff has been exceptional, solution-oriented, which you don't always get, so I appreciate their thoughtfulness on all of this. I mean, from the developer side, we've had an eye on this property for 15 years. It's a pretty special parcel. It's very big. There's a lot of trees. There's a lot of grade changes, but this is kind of our expertise. We love to take these sites as they are and change as very little as them as possible, because we really think what is out there today is really what people will pay for. And it's a pretty special site. And ultimately, like Julie said, we want to be good stewards of this land. So that's where the environmental is very important to us, making sure that the primary drainage ways are preserved long-term. So roughly 12% of the overall 280 acres is preserved in permanent outlots, so that the primary drainage ways are kept as they are today. And then again, the 35% that each person will be required to set aside in a permanent easement to make sure that nothing is ever built on that property, make sure that area is kept to trees and natural grasses, which will continue to help drainage ways, or the water as it drains from the lot down into the primary drainages, to make sure that is clean water as it goes down. So environmental is extremely, extremely important to us, and I appreciate all the questions and the technical questions. With me is Dave Madden. He's helping us on the legal side to work through the agreements, and then I also have Doug Kellner here from TD2. So if there are any technical questions or if they would like to get up and answer any of those questions, we're happy to answer those. Like Julie said, the Planning Commission went very smoothly. 75% of the questions were just regarding Harrison Street and the construction of that. So obviously the paving on Harrison Street to our first entrance is extremely important to us, and with the traction that the county's already been making, paving that to 225th, and I think per their plans that they go past it just a little bit, maybe 100 feet. So really the distance from that to our first entrance is not too far. We've had a conversation, Doug Kellner and I, with the Douglas County, and they were supportive of paying for their northern side. So completely agree. There are still lots of things to work through. After we get approval on this prelim plat, we will start all those conversations right away. In regards to utilities, I've had conversations with MUD on what it will cost to run that main out. We think Sarpy County likes the idea of MUD being brought out versus, I think you guys would also be a proponent of a community well, but given the number of lots and the complexity of that, it really isn't that much cheaper to go that route. And you also just the water usage could impact others. So we are in conversations with MUD. I've gotten bids from them on what it would cost to bring that out. So that's the direction we're going there. I have submitted, Vice Chairman Kelly, you're exactly right. OPPD is my biggest worry. It's been my biggest worry.
Ours too.
Yeah, I completely share that with you. I've already submitted our request for them to start designing because that is always the holdup is OPPD. So they're already starting on design because that is the biggest worry. MUD historically, at least over the past 3 to 4 years, have been pretty good to work with as long as you're willing to write the check up front. They're willing to work.
Well, they're good, and they're our partner in economic development.
Absolutely.
So hopefully you'll have success with them. I'm just curious, though, based on the constraints you're facing, what is your estimated timeline for really breaking ground, so to speak, and building roads and getting the houses going?
It's as fast as OPPD will bring power.
Okay.
So ideally, which we're just starting those conversations now, I've submitted everything, so they're starting to look at it. And Doug Kellner can also speak to what it's maybe been the last 6 months. I know things have been a little slower, but I know there's also starting to get better with some operational efficiencies and just without some of the COVID delays in some of their switch gears and transformers. So it is getting better. And so we've started that process, and I would say that's probably my answer. As fast as we can get utilities out there is when we'll start. And that could be ideally later this year, but realistically it could stretch into early the next year, but it is completely dependent on how quickly we can get utilities out to the site.
Thank you.
Yep. So a few other things. Harrison Street was one of the planning commission, so obviously working through that. 240th was another one. I think that one's maybe a little bit more up in the air based on what Julie said. We are more than happy to contribute or do whatever the county wants to do, whether that's asphalt or spraying some sort of top coat, whatever the county's looking to do there, we are more than happy to participate. And then the last thing that was brought up is really just there's a few areas on this site as the railroad came through the site. You've got some areas that have pretty drastic hillsides going down. So just the safety of the trails, we're doing a full site 2-foot interval survey right now. So we'll have a better understanding of exactly where all this stuff starts to fall down. And obviously the safety of the residents is of utmost importance. So in those areas, we'll make sure that adequate fencing is done, or maybe we even move the trail to a safer area. It is, as we move from prelim plat to final platting our first phase, we will be sure to work through all of these last remaining details.
I think it has the potential to be a fabulous development, but I've seen a lot of fabulous developments out in the western part of the county that were built. The gravel roads were there, and then they come back to you after the fact and go, hey, we need this paved, and you ask them to, once the homes are in there, the money never shows up.
Sure.
So
that's
why I think you really need to iron that out, the funding for that improvement before you get going, because it could be cost prohibitive, I would think. Maybe not, but it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be sure to work through that in our subdivision agreement. And I think, if this is approved today, I think even getting a calendar invite with Douglas County in the next week so we can start those conversations, figure out what it's going to cost to just bring it from where it's currently projected to end to our first entrance at a minimum for Harrison Street, because I know that's probably what most of the neighbors also want, is they want Harrison Street to be paved, and we're right there with them. I understand the economic aspect to it, but we'll continue to work through that.
And from a dust standpoint, I think it'll be a huge amenity for the people that build out there not to have to deal with dust, because that's also a common complaint we get.
Yeah. Harrison Street is difficult only because as it goes from, I'm not exactly sure where this ends, maybe 240th or actually it's probably 237th. As it ends here and goes down to 240th, it's, from my conversations, it's probably never going to go through just because it falls really far downhill.
Isn't the Elkhorn River right out to the west of that?
Exactly, on 240th. So I think there's also an element of, plowing the snow, and also just how rough it can get at the end because everyone knows it's a dead end and doesn't go anywhere. So we're obviously in favor of paving all the way to the end. I think if the money is there, I'm sure the county would be too, and obviously all the neighbors would be. But we'll be sure to work through that in subdivision.
I mean, I think ultimately it would end in a round,
exactly,
like a cul-de-sac,
sure,
where cars could turn around
exactly
safely, and because they're not getting into the subdivision unless they live there, right? You wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want people just kind of wandering around out there that nobody knows. So.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
Great. Appreciate your
absolutely.
Comments.
Further questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak to these items?
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Elliott, 7979 South 240th Street. I'm here to represent myself, my wife, my mother, Shirley, and my brother-in-law and sister who lives on a property immediately to the west of this property. It's a total area of about 80 acres. And if I could get, I don't know if I can get that environmental map up here again, Julie. We are not opposed to the development.
Do you have the vicinity?
I'd like that environmental that shows the creeks and the waterways.
This one?
Yes.
Let me see if I can zoom in. You can continue talking, I'll zoom it in a little bit.
So myself being in the development business, we understand development. I'm sure DJ and his partners will do a wonderful job with their subdivision, but we do have a few concerns. And I guess I would start a little bit off the subject saying, Commissioner Warren and Commissioner Kelly, we share the same concerns with OPPD. OPPD has been a terrible partner in the development community. They've cost us millions and millions of dollars with delays. And they just do not have our ear as a development community. And so anything we can do to help you or work with you in any way with them, we meet and call them daily. And if DJ is going to wait for OPPD to give them an answer, he's going to be waiting forever. He's going to have to start into his process and develop this project before he's going to get OPPD even to start thinking about designing this thing. OPPD has changed their design process where the developer is in control of putting conduits in. And so OPPD won't even design their own systems anymore. The development community has to design them for them. And we've done that just so we can try to speed up the process. They have not been a good partner. Anyway,
Thanks, Jeff.
I'll get off my soapbox. Our first concern is density and lot size. And when you have a septic system project, it's been my practice to have at least 3-acre lots. There's many of these lots in here that are under 3 acres. So I guess we're concerned with that. Also, it seems like they're a little bit unsure if they're going to extend public water out here or not. And if they don't, then the lot sizes ought to be much larger if there's going to be septic and a well system. I think before you approve a preliminary plat, you ought to get a commitment that they're going to have public water, and MUD water would be the only way to go. Second concern is erosion. So I'll just, so we own the property along this line, which is the old railroad bed, the lost rail, so to speak. The railroad bed is on our property. Adjacent to their property on the railroad bed, it's from, at least halfway through our property, it's a minimum 30 to 40 feet drop from their property straight down to the railroad bed. All of these lots, if they drain, they do drain down, and I just point out, environmentally sensitive, this whole waterway runs through our property. If the stormwater isn't controlled, it's going to run down, it's going to erode the old railroad bed, the slopes are going to slough off, fall in, and it's going to erode this whole drainage way. This part of our property is just a beautiful oak forest. And so we're really concerned that they'll have a difficult time controlling their erosion, and it'll affect our property. The next concern, I think DJ alluded to it, they're proposing a public trail which runs right adjacent to our property, with the railroad bed being 30 feet down. You get anyone that would, enjoy going off the trail, exploring a little bit. It's dangerous. There's steep slopes. The slopes along this drainage way, while it's beautiful, back there it's really steep and dangerous. So I guess our request is that they would protect their people by putting a fence along the property line, and just reducing our risk. The fourth request is the access onto 240th Street. Our access is on 240th Street right here, and every day the traffic level increases on 240th Street. You have the Lost Rail Golf Course. Golfers are using that. More and more it's getting to be a north-south connector. From the north-south, you've got a new arena coming in down by the interstate, and all of the other great things that are happening in Gretna and Sarpy County, and the traffic level is just going to continue to increase more and more. It's virtually a rock mud road when it rains. With it being on the riverbed, I think it may be a little bit worse than maybe somewhere up the hill a ways where water collects and it just gets really a muddy mess and it's dangerous. So our request is that when and if this development connects, that it would be paved, just from a safety
To
standpoint.
connect to Harrison? Is that what you're saying?
No, the connection, well, there's a connection here to 240th Street, which our house
Oh, I see
connects
what you're
onto.
saying.
So
Yeah, you're talking about.
I'm
connection
talking
to
about
the
240th
subdivision.
Street. So from the Douglas County line north, it's paved. When it hits Sarpy County, it is gravel.
Okay.
So that's my request. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So can you just point out 240th again for me?
240th is right here.
And then it curves to the northwest.
It curves to the north and west.
Okay.
This curve is kind of dangerous when it gets wet and muddy. It's slippery. I think Julie referred to a bridge. There's two little bridges that are basically one-lane bridges. And that also, as traffic levels increase, becomes more and more dangerous.
And your property is to the west of that, correct, of 240th?
Our property is right here to the
South.
east.
East
To
and
the
south.
south of the development.
Okay.
The Hebrons live or have this piece of property right here. we're the next property here, plus we have all of this area right here, right next to their phase one.
Okay,
And this whole area of their property is all agricultural ground. There's virtually minimal trees here. So erosion is going to be a big deal, both keeping the dirt on their property off of our property, and then the water runoff it's going to be hard to control so it doesn't erode.
so 240th Street is gravel all the way until you get up to, because it doesn't connect
All the
to
way
Harrison.
till, well, I don't know, it's probably a half mile south until it curves and turns into Lincoln Road.
Okay,
So Lincoln Road is paved just on the
right.
west end of the other Kurt Hofer development.
Okay, so 240th is gravel.
Yes.
All the way from Lincoln Road up to,
Up to Douglas County.
which, is it Q Street or does
No,
it actually change?
it's actually Harrison Street. So if Harrison Street goes straight over here, this is basically it right on Harrison.
Yeah.
And
Does
DJ's
that go
correct.
through
You'll
there?
never,
Does that
you'll never
Harrison-
connect.
Does that
Harrison.
road go through there, Harrison?
No.
Yeah, I didn't
And
think so.
DJ's correct. You would never do that. It's probably over 100 feet
Yeah,
to get from Harrison Street down to 240.
gotcha.
So that'll never connect.
So what you're saying is, if you drew an imaginary line off Harrison, that's where it changes to pavement.
That's where the paving ends or
Well,
starts.
That's something Sarpy County needs to probably remedy, because isn't that our furthest west, north-south arterial road? And for all intents and purposes, it is becoming an arterial road, isn't it?
I don't know if you go on the west side of the river, Denny.
Yeah. You have Bensel's Island that comes all the way down,
Okay,
which there's nothing in their paved.
right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak to either one of these items?
I'd just like to make one comment about approving a preliminary plat. I know it's recommended that we wait until we have assurance of public water, but as long as we have a final plat out in front of us, I mean, there's an opportunity to bring things to a halt. So I'm still comfortable with the preliminary plat. But we have generated a lot of questions today that probably we need to have good answers to, and I'm sure the developer wants those answers as well. The last thing I would say is anybody in the development community that has a problem with any organization that's part of development that has an elected board, and if you're getting talked to the hand, call me. They can't tell me to talk to the hand, and they won't. So we might be able to help you break down barriers to kind of speed things along. I know it's extremely frustrating, and sometimes it's frustrating for us too, because we get answers we don't like, but they're responsive, and that's half the battle. So don't hesitate to reach out to any of the commissioners up here, and we'll assist in it. That's our job.
Reach out to Don.
Yeah, well, reach out to me, then I'll call Warren.
I hear those issues, and OPPD is just unbelievable. So what they've done to the development community in this area is sad.
I would second Commissioner Kelly's comments. If we can help out in any way with that relationship with OPPD, obviously the county would benefit from that as well. So please do feel free to reach out. Any further comments from the public before we close the public hearing? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion on agenda item 7.1.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Warren, second by Kelly. Any further questions or comments? Please vote.
Not seeing anything. There
I
it
see
is.
two come through.
Thanks, Kendra.
Yep. Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
All right, agenda 7.2. Could I get a motion on that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Warren, second by Kelly. Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
All right, moving on to the regular commissioners' agenda 8.0. 8.1 is another public hearing. It's a public hearing and recommendation to Liquor Control Commission. Basil's Italian and Ice Cream application for Class I beer, wine, spirits on sale only liquor license for business at 16918 Morgan Avenue, Suite 1, Gretna, Nebraska 68028. Don Eccles.
I'm here for Don Eccles.
Hello? You don't, if you have any comments or,
Oh, okay, I didn't know. He just said you need to come, and I didn't know if I needed to bring anything.
Could you state your name for the record?
Chandra Kipper.
thank you.
That's
And, any questions for the applicant? All right.
For coming out.
Again, this is a public hearing. Anybody else from the public that wishes to speak to item agenda 8.1 or agenda item 8.1? Seeing none, close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Motion to approve for the Class I beer, wine, and spirits on sale only license.
Second.
Motion by Warren, second by Kelly. Any further questions or comments? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
Thank you for being here. Agenda item 8.2 is another public hearing, public hearing and recommendation to Liquor Control Commission. Baisu Nail Spa LLC, applicant for a Class I beer, wine, and spirits on sale only liquor license for business at 18870 Oakmont Drive, Suites 3 and 4, Omaha, Nebraska 68136. Ty Doan, President.
She is here, but we'll answer questions if she needs any.
All right. Does anybody from the public wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Kelly, second by Warren. Any further comments? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
And thank
One
you.
last question, Kendra. Does she need to pick up anything from your office?
She does not.
Okay.
Thank you for being here. All right, final agenda on the regular commission's agenda is 8.3, Resolution 2025-32, June 30th, 2024, Sarpy County Financial Audit Report. Dan Talikas, CFO, and Austin Hankey, Hayes and Associates, LLC.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. On December 31st, 2024, the audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2024 were issued by Hayes and Associates, the county's independent auditor. This report is the culmination of months of planning and hard work, both by their firm and by employees of Sarpy County. Specifically, I'd like to thank Jenny Rock and Michaela Gansimer in the fiscal office for all of the time and the effort that they put into the audit process. I'd also like to thank Tim Lenz with Creative Planning for helping our team prepare documents for the audit. The Sarpy County Audit Committee met on January 13th and reviewed the audit in detail. Today, I will only present a few comments and then turn it over to Austin Hankey from Hayes and Associates for his presentation to the board. The audit report is a 70-page report grouped into different sections as I have outlined on the slide in front of you. This report was included with the agenda item and is also available on the county's website under the Fiscal and Budget Department page. I'd just like to highlight two sections of the audit report: management's discussion and analysis, and also the notes to the financial statements. The MD&A section is prepared by the management of Sarpy County and gives us the opportunity to provide commentary on the financial statements that are included in the report. This section is good reading to help understand why certain numbers may have changed from the prior year. The 27-page footnote section mostly is required language. However, some language is added in order to improve the communication of the figures in the financial statements and to provide full disclosure and transparency to the readers of the report. Most importantly, the county received an unmodified opinion on the financial statements included in the audit report. This means that the financial statements present fairly in all material aspects the respective financial position of Sarpy County as of June 30th, 2024. The audit report includes observations on internal controls, federal programs, compliance, and other matters, and there were no areas of concern. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Austin Hankey with Hayes & Associates to provide his comments.
Thanks, Dan. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Again, Austin Hankey with Hayes & Associates. I'm one of the shareholders in the firm. just want to say thank you for allowing us to serve the county for the last 5 years. We appreciate your partnership and are happy to continue to serve the county in any way that we can. Excuse me. As Dan went over, kind of the three key pieces that are a part of what we prepare for the actual report, our independent auditor's report over the financial statements as a whole, preparing the reports as it relates to the financial reporting controls at the back end of our 70-page report, and then also the Yellow Book or single audit report that talks about the controls or the major programs that we audited as part of the compliance audit related to, in this case, for the share of the ARPA funds, and then also the child support enforcement program. So those were the two that we looked at. When it comes down to that page that Dan had just brought up here. So looking at really a summary of the three reports here. First piece showing that unmodified opinion, and then if there were findings going down the list, what would be listed, and then language added as related to those. One thing when it comes to all the various areas of the report that we really try to highlight as part of my communication with organizations, if they really want to drill down into what should I pay attention to as a reader of these financial statements, is, as was mentioned, pay attention to that MD&A, the management discussion analysis. That gives kind of that high level overview, but also drills down into the significant changes from one year to another. And then beyond just the financials themselves, the footnotes, really if somebody is going to understand what's within those financial statements, that's where you're going to want to go for the back room detail on. This is what shows up on the financial statements, but how did we get there? The policies that go into driving the decisions that are made on the accounting side, how does that in fact impact the end result, which is the financial statements? I also want to just be available for the commissioners, and if there's any questions. I know we went through things just a couple of weeks ago, the audit committee. I just want to be available.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, question I've been asking for a long time. What do I need to be concerned about since I'm not an auditor? Not even that good at math.
Well, I would say that's where, if you're looking at that MD&A and the footnotes, there is some figures in math, but those are the narrative heavy areas. So supposed to be spelled out in what should be plain language so that the readers of these financial statements can at least get an idea of what's going on, even if they don't have that thorough understanding.
And so you would have no concerns on anything?
As of right now, if we're looking at, when we're doing our opinion, right, we're looking at these financial statements as they present right here. We're saying that those present fairly in all material respects. Now, as part of our process, as we go through things, there's tons of adjustments that get made as a part of the preparation process for the audit. We're always aware of things that go on. We're looking at the results of the internal audit work that's done during the year, and whether that's something that we need to bring also as concerns that would have an impact on these financial statements when it comes down to the end product. Taking all of that else into consideration, what is our opinion of these? Well, as it shows, all corrections being made, we think we don't have any concerns with what is being shown there in their report, and that's what's the public document.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
So you've been doing this for 5 years for Sarpy?
Yes, this is our 5th year with Sarpy County, yes.
So have we always had an unmodified opinion, or have we done worse in the past?
Yes, we have always had an unmodified opinion. We have not always not had any findings. So we have had years where there's been findings.
Yeah, and then they're corrected.
Correct.
So that's good. Congratulations, Dan. But internal controls, that was something that I know we've had a problem with in the past. And based on your review and audit, we are doing everything that needs to be done to make sure we don't have any issues with unauthorized expenditures and or misallocation of funds.
So as part of the process, we do look at the different transaction cycles, just like as you were talking about, the expenditures of funds, how do things come in, how they go out, the different areas. really as the county operates, right? So when we do those tests, we're not going to be testing every single transaction. There may be things that go by the wayside that we just aren't able to find. It's not practical for us to be able to test every single expenditure or every receipt that comes through the county. That's not really what an audit is. But what we do at the global level, if you will, we're trying to scrutinize what the processes are, how they should be effectively operating. Within our opinion, we do specifically say, as with every audit opinion, this isn't just us, right? The way that that's taken on is, from what we've looked at, we don't have anything that we came across. Not that it can't exist.
Right.
In our past reports, we've had issues with the internal controls, the policies and procedures. Early on, it was surrounding the treasurer's office. Things have improved over the last several years, but there's still areas for improvement. Now, we have some of those discussions in a informal matter, if you will. Nothing that really rises to the level where we say we want to put it in our report in a public document that says these are the issues that we found.
Do we have the ability for future audits to ask you to take deeper dives into specific areas that may be of concern? I'm just curious.
Well, typically with a independent auditor's report, right, we're looking at just at the financial statement report. You guys do have another firm that does that specific work.
Okay.
So that is something as part of the audit committee, the internal audit process. That is something that's being done on an ongoing basis.
Okay.
One thing, if we do continue to work as your independent auditors, I would like to be able to attend some of those quarterly meetings. I don't need to be a part of the board, but even if it's just a guest, so that we can have further or deeper conversations that would allow us to either comment or give really some high-level strategy from what we're seeing, either industry level-wise or just some information that could allow those that are going to be doing that work maybe focus on these areas. This is where we're seeing the kind of the trends going.
That sounds reasonable, but I'll have to defer to Dan on that. But I appreciate your candid answers.
Yeah.
Austin and Commissioner Kelly, if I may, so that audit committee, they are proactive in looking at things like accounts receivable, the P-card program, things like that. So it might not be as deep of an issue for Hayes and Associates to do, but that audit committee certainly looks at those things.
It's good to know. Thank you.
Correct, yes.
Any further questions for Austin? All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, if I may, I know there was a question that came up from the commissioners last week about debt to equity. So if you have a moment, I know we've been here a while. I was going to offer just a couple of things.
Sure.
So fortunately enough, we work with several counties just in Nebraska. So I was able to pretty quickly pull together some information comparables for y'all that I just wanted to highlight really quickly. So Sarpy kind of sits right in the middle if we're looking just at debt to equity. You guys are sitting pretty well. For myself, if I'm looking at an organization, if I'm trying to look at it, not necessarily as an investor, as the auditor, I would almost put it in the frame of what is my annual payment going to do as far as constraint on my budget, right? Your equity, the debt, it's going to change year to year, but as you're looking at what is my actual annual commitment to this as a part of budgeting, as well as looking at what opportunities do I have going in the future. If we look at it as a percent of your total revenue, you guys are kind of towards the higher side of the, I use the top 5 counties. So that's yourselves, Douglas, Sarpy, Hall, and Buffalo. Those are the top 5 current. Douglas and Lancaster are in like 1.6%. You guys are at 4.7, same percent as Hall and Buffalo. Now, as a percent of your total assets is where it gets more favorable in your side. Looking at just 1.3, right? If you're looking at your debt to your total assets, you guys are on a better track there. And if you are looking at it just specifically for that equity, you're looking at 2.2% on an annual basis. Douglas at 1.5, Lancaster 3.8, Hall and Buffalo go up to 6 and 8. So just as even if it's just some sort of comfort, you guys are on the right track and right in the middle of the pack.
Well, you're just confirming what we already know.
That's good.
We're the best county in the state.
Considering all of the growth that you guys do have, I was surprised once I ran the numbers where it landed out. Because I know there's been a lot that have been taken on recently, which was probably part of the concern. So,
Do you know, just for keeping the back of our minds, so we're at 4.7% right now. Do you know what 1% accounts for from a dollar perspective? So if we were to,
so if that is comparing to the annual revenue, now this is just for this last fiscal year, so that's 160 million. So 1.6 million would be 1%. Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else or any other clarification I can add? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Burmeister, second by Kelly. Real quick, just want to comment on Dan and financial staff. Thank you for running a tight ship. I know you've recently taken the reins. You're doing a fantastic job, and just really appreciate what you and your staff are doing year in, year out to help with the budgeting as well as the audit process. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
Agenda item 9, executive session. I don't believe we need one this evening. So with that, all agenda items having been addressed as published, the Board of Commissioners is adjourned.